want to go into engineering and you hate math, that's going to be a rough road, right? So think about it that way. So if you're in the category of I have no idea, hopefully you have some idea. Make sense? But I also want you to, from the beginning, and we'll start in a sec, I want you to think about this and ask God for his guidance on what you should go into. Right? At the end of the day, in the grand scheme of life, right, God cares about what each one of us does from a profession, because that's an act of service. An opportunity to serve and be Christian in our communities. Right? But at the same time, being honest, right, if you think about it, our goal in life is to attain the kingdom of God. So our careers could be a path there, but our careers don't make us who we are. Right? Some people have very big careers and they don't attain the kingdom of God, or vice versa. Some people have very simple jobs and they attain the kingdom of God. Right? So we also want to make sure that whatever we think about, we want to do is aligned to what God wants us to do. Make sense? Okay? There's a lot of people who are very wealthy people in the world who just lost and are doing a lot of, non-Christian types of things, right? So we want to make sure that whatever we choose is aligned with what God wants. And we ask for his guidance and his will on what we should be doing. Make sense? Yes? No? Okay? So we're going to try to do 10 minutes, different topics. But again, the idea is to get an overview of that profession, but also to know that if I want to learn about pharmacy, I should go to this person. Right? And for every one of these professions, there's probably 10 other people in the church. Okay? So we just kind of chose a sample. Make sense? Yes? Okay? Okay, why don't we start with medicine? So we'll do medicine, we'll do business, accounting, finance, we'll do pharmacy, we'll do education, we'll do police academy, and we'll do engineering. Those are the topics today. Okay? Make sense? Sorry. Any questions while we're already starting, setting us up? Any comments, thoughts? So most of you are high school. Anybody in college? College, okay. Early part of college, right? Late part of college, okay. So some of you are like, why are you even wasting my time thinking about the things I have no idea, right? Some of you are like, I have some ideas. Some of you are in college and you're trying to like hone it down potentially, right? So a different spectrum. But again, it's just a matter of exposure and awareness, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, guys, so I just want to briefly go over what medicine is, the paths to getting there, some qualities that I would recommend that you have before exploring the career of medicine. This is going to be, again, very quick. So becoming a doctor, what does that entail? What does that mean? So I'll tell you, even after doing this for almost 30 years, it is incredibly rewarding and fulfilling. Just the expression, I'm living the dream. Every day I feel I'm living the dream. God has blessed me with the ability to do what I've always wanted to do and what I dreamt of doing. So even when my day is incredibly difficult and very stressful, I could barely make it through the day, it still, for me, is very fulfilling and something that I love to do. If you want to help people, this is one of those areas where you can help people, where you can truly make a difference. It doesn't mean that you can't make a difference in other areas of medicine or other areas, period, whether it be engineering or finance or whatever. There's always the possibility or the opportunity of being able to help somebody. in medicine, you're definitely helping people, and you're definitely making a difference. And that difference can be on a clinical basis or surgical or a combination. For my profession, I'm an ophthalmologist. It's a combination of clinically or medically based as well as surgically based interventions that help people. And what I personally enjoy about medicine, in the profession that I chose in medicine, and that's ophthalmology, is that surgical, you get to see the results of your labor almost immediately. And there's something amazingly gratifying about that. I'll share quickly with you a story. Gentleman, and this only happened once, but it was so impactful that I'll never forget it. Right after, he was blind from cataracts in both his eyes, and so I did his first eye, and while he was still on the gurney and we were moving the microscope away, he said, "I can see your face," and he started crying, because it was the first face, unfortunately it was my face, but the first face that he had seen in a few years. And, that never leaves you. That, something like that, an event like that, stays with you forever. Practical, hands-on, the new term that is used a lot these days is experiential learning. What is meant by that is the experience of learning, or learning through an experience. So medical school is famous for that, because you start doing that at a very, very early time in your medical school training, like anatomy. Our anatomy class, we were literally, dissecting human cadavers. So we were assigned 2 of us per cadaver, and we're actually dissecting a human body. And it made you very humble that this human being had donated their body to science. And we were always instructed by our instructors to be so respectful of the body and how we dealt with this body that this person had donated, so that we could learn the anatomy of the human body. So just that experience alone, first year medical school anatomy class, was an experience that how many people get to do that? Okay? Very few. Very, very few. And that was a huge privilege and a huge honor to be able to do that. Again, I'll share with you a funny story. I had an anatomy exam following Christmas break. So I was going home. So I attended medical school at the University of Toronto in Toronto, Canada. So I was going home to Pittsburgh, and so the University of Toronto has one of the oldest medical schools. So we were each given a human skull, and it's an actual human skull, and it's given to you in this wooden box. And so I took the skull with me home because I had to study the anatomy of the skull. And so you can imagine the expressions I got when I was going through the airport and putting it through the x-ray machines. And so I had to always show my, my medical school ID and a piece of paper saying that, I was studying. But anyways, the expressions from those people was quite something. So staying passionate, staying driven. I think that's true in any profession if you're going to be successful. I think so. Medicine maybe demands a little bit more because it's a long slog, okay? And we'll get to the slog, so to speak, in just a moment on one of the other slides. But you have to remain driven and passionate about what you want to do and where you want to be and what you want to accomplish, because that passion will get you through the hard times and get you through the long nights and all the studying and all the work. So what does a doctor do? It depends. A doctor can do so many different things, it's endless. I mean, you can be a pathologist where you're looking at slides all day. You have literally zero human interaction other than your microscope and your slides, and that's all you're doing. Your only human interaction is with your colleagues. So you could do that, or you could do research where, again, you're not interacting with patients at all. Yes, you're an MD, yes, you've finished medical school, and yes, you're a doctor, but you have no patient interaction. To the other extreme, I would say, would be sort of psychiatry, where literally all you're doing is speaking to patients. You're literally doing nothing but speaking to patients and giving medicine and doing counseling, etc. And everything in between, all the different surgical specialties, all the different clinical specialties. Radiology, again, is more like pathology, where there's no interaction unless you do interventional radiology. And there you can have interaction with patients as well as reading scans. So again, in medicine, it depends. What do you want to do? That's what's so amazing about medicine and medical school, is you say, oh, I want to become a doctor. Well, that's a huge spectrum. I want to become a doctor. So it's the privilege of getting there. It's the honor of getting there. But then once you're there, you will need to decide what you want to do. And again, we'll talk about when that decision comes to play. So there are 120 medical specialties. 120. Imagine. 120. Incredible. Again, some have no patient interaction, from research or pathology to psychiatry, but all take care of or help people, in the sense of what they do is all about patient care, or what's good for a patient, what's good for humanity. So, qualities you need to become a good doctor, okay? And I have 3 slides of this. So I'm not going to, go one by one, or I'll be here forever. But I want you to read through these qualities. And I hope that all of you will find in yourselves many of these qualities, and I think you all have many of these qualities. Does that mean necessarily that you should go into medicine? No, it doesn't. Again, as Uncle Henny said earlier, it depends upon what you like in school and what you see yourself doing. So if you're a science person, if you enjoy science, medicine could definitely be a consideration for you, okay? But these are some of the things: hardworking, sincere, caring, patient, good communication, particularly if you're going to deal with patients. You're not going to be that radiologist just with scans, or that pathologist just looking at slides. It's important that you have good communication skills, observant, good intentions, humility. That's what makes a good doctor, is humility. Knowing your limitations, balance in your life. Balance in your life is true of medicine and true of anything in life. Balance is what gives life meaning and purpose. And as Christians, we need to always put at the top of our priority list our relationship with God and seeking Him first. Seeking Him first, everything else will come after. But seek Him first in everything you do. Okay, so this takes me basically to my final slide. So the slog, so to speak, that I was talking to you about. So it starts out with pre-medicine. Typically it's 4 years of pre-medical school or pre-medicine, where you'll get a BA or a BS or a BSc. And during that, you have to fulfill certain prerequisite courses, and you have to take the medical scholastic exam. And that is very important. What you get on the MCAT exam and doing very well in your 4 years of undergraduate is very, very important. You will apply to medical school, God willing. You're accepted based upon your grades, your extracurricular activities, volunteering, and your MCAT scores. Then you enter medical school. Medical school is 4 years. First 2 years typically are purely didactic or coursework. Third year, you have a little more clinical training. Fourth year is all rotations. So it's 4 years of medical school. During your 4th year of medical school, typically in March, there's something called the match day. Match day is when you match to a residency program. So the residency program will be anywhere from 3 years to 7 years of residency to be trained in the specialty of your choosing. So on that match day, some people, thankfully, the overwhelming majority do match. Some do not match, and then they have to pick up spots or do something different. And then you start your residency training. And again, that can be 3 years to, again, 7 years of residency training. And it can even be beyond that if you do a fellowship. So residency training can extend for quite a period of time. Then at the end of residency, you're done with your formal training, but then you need to take your board certification and your board exam. And then that, you have to redo board certification every 10 years in the United States. It's, I think I'm correct in saying this, the only country in the world that requires its physicians to be reboarded every 10 years. Even Canada, New Zealand, Australia, France, Germany, all the sort of Western countries, the United States is unique. So lucky us. We get to take our boards every 10 years. But that gives you some idea of the level of education and the training that you need to go through to become a physician. Okay? Quickly, any questions, or do you want us to save the questions to the end, Hanny?
Just to save the time.
We'll save until the end, for sure.
Again, most of the people are presenting, obviously, you know them, so you know what's coming to ask them next week or whatever. Let's leave the questions to the end of your one-on-one.
Perfect. Who will be next? Ashraf? Thanks. TV? Perfect.
So, Henny asked me to chat with you guys about the business, primarily the finance and accounting career. So, finance and accounting falls under business in general. It's not as exciting as medicine, but it is a very crucial role that exists in pretty much everything that you do, whether you know it or not. So every institution, company, product that you touch, anything has some kind of a finance or an accounting element in the back, where the managing money and surviving, to have a good business, you need to have good control over finance and your accounting. So I'm not going to go into that much detail of difference between accounting and finance, but in general, they say usually accountants are focused more on historical kind of perspective of things, and finance people will probably look more into prediction and understanding what the future might look like. Accounting is typically an easier career to break in right out of school, maybe less, you don't need a lot of experience. Finance, you probably need a little bit more experience. A lot of people actually start in accounting and kind of shift more into the finance once they get the grip of all the basics. They tend to go into finance because there are probably a lot more opportunities. There are so many opportunities within that field. It's pretty stable, meaning there's always going to be a need as long as there are governments and regulations and around. They're probably going to need accountants and finance people to take care of all these requirements. So the career path is very similar, right? So you could, you're going to go to business school, you're going to concentrate on accounting or finance. Typically, a finance person will probably pursue an MBA, like a Master in Business Administration. That will kind of give them the edge versus other people who just have undergrad. Accountants, if you really want to do it the right way, you should definitely consider being a CPA, like pursue your CPA, which is to become a certified public accountant. Both would probably end up having it, because I think to get a CPA you need 150 credits. So typically you'll probably need another 30 credit above your undergrad credit hours that you have. So you have to go back and study some more. You're probably going to align these additional classes with something that would help you to pass the CPA exam. It's a very long exam. It's pretty complex, so it needs a lot of preparation to get through it. So the pros and cons of, so as I said, it's a fairly stable jobs like out there. Like it's not, you're probably gonna find a job somewhere. You can grow within. So a lot of people don't really understand that. Usually, when they think of accountants, they usually think of the guy who does their taxes, and that's yes, that's part of it. But that is not the majority of where these professionals are. As I said, every company that you deal with have a huge accounting and finance department behind the scene, making sure that this company will survive, and delivering all these numbers. You see how much Google is worth, how much money they made, how much when they price something, and all these things that you're just touch every day. There's somebody in finance and accounting behind the scene did the math that lead to these products that you see every day. So there's a big number in every big company out there of finance and accounting professionals, so that gives you the opportunity to grow within the company, or within that career. You could within maybe 5 to 7 years you can maybe become a manager, and that will probably put you in the 6-figure. You're probably going to start maybe it's $70,000 or $60,000, $80,000 range in both these careers, but probably once you get to a manager and above, then you'll probably get into the 6-figure. From there, there's no limit really. You can continue to grow. You can, if you're really good at it, you can maybe become a CFO of one of these companies one day, but there's so much that you can do within that career. You need to be into numbers, because you're going to be staring at numbers 24/7. like literally. And you need to be able to be analytical and problem solving, because a lot of the need is out there for businesses and marketing. They come to finance and they want, okay, so what should I do about this? Or how should I go about doing this? Or what if I increase the price of this from A to whatever? Is this gonna, right? So all this analytical, or these questions that the business pose at you, you will need to be, um, um, you have that ability to analyze and take this data and give them something that can help make decisions and move one way or another with the ideas that they have out there. I mean, the prospect for like the potential growth for both. Sorry, my iPad keeps. Are fairly good. Like, I know it doesn't look like a big number, but 6 to 9% is the projected growth for both these careers. But as I mentioned, it's fairly stable, and you should not have an issue finding a job, or pursuing that career for the rest of your life. You do need to be aware there are things like what Ray talked about, like maybe there's you don't necessarily gonna have direct impact on somebody's well-being, but indirectly, yes, right? So if a pharmaceutical company is making medicine that makes people, right, feel better, or get better, and if that pharma company has the right finance and accounting people, that means they'll stay in business, and that means they can produce more products, and right, so you're indirectly impacting a lot of these things, but maybe you're not going to have this direct impact on human beings. It does, the good thing is, you're not dealing directly with humans, so that means there's different level of stress with accounting, and but it is, at the end of the day, it's numbers. So it is sometimes gets really stressful, because there's so many things that you need to deliver on certain times and deadlines, and all the stuff comes crumbling down. Sometimes it feels like at the same day, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with numbers. So it is good to keep in mind that if you're into math, you're analytical, you like this type of work, then that might be the career for you. If you get bored, if you can't stay focused on these type of things for a long period of time, then maybe just keep that in mind when you're making these decisions. I think that's kind of. We'll leave the questions to the end or later if you guys want to add anything. But do you, anything specific that you had in mind around accounting and finance that I didn't touch on? Do you think? No? Okay.
Thank you. All right, guys, I'm not as elaborate. I don't have a PowerPoint. I apologize. So I'm just going to speak from my phone. For anybody, do I need this? I don't think I need it. Can you hear me, Agben? Yeah, I speak. I think so. So that's part of my actually job. I'm a teacher, so when I speak very loud, and they're broadcasting this. I'm on YouTube. Okay, I guess I do need this. All right. Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know what I do, I am a teacher. I teach third grade, that's elementary school, and they asked me to speak a little bit about teaching, and if anybody's interested, just to kind of get you to think about how to kind of go this way or that way. But Anyway, what does it take to become a teacher? I think a teacher is one of the most important jobs, and teachers bring up engineers and doctors and pharmacists, and they inspire kids to become the best of themselves. But you have to really be good at it, and you have to love what you do. And just to love to be with children is really one of the most important things. But what does it start with? It starts out with a 4-year bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited college or university. Once you become, and then you're certified in the state of New Jersey. I'm talking just about New Jersey. During the 4 years degree, it's a bachelor's degree, like I said, there are some practical experiences. So like I've had in my classroom many times, the principal will send out an email and say, is anybody interested in taking a practicum student? And these students come into our class, and some, depending upon where they are in their practical experience, whether it's second year or third year, they can observe or they can help out a little bit, or again, it really depends on where they are, and then also it depends on the teachers. Some teachers will let the practicum student help, and some teachers just want them out of their way. Usually whenever I had a practicum student, the kids, the little kids, because remember I'm teaching third graders that are 8 years old, 9 years old, they love when anybody new comes into the classroom, and so they like it when these guys get their hands in and they do activities with them. So, I usually let them do that. Last semester of a teaching career is when someone, or if you're going to become a teacher, is when you would do your student teaching, and that's about 15 to 16 week period where you're placed by your school into a school of their choice, and you become the teacher. You take the class over, you prepare the lessons, you teach, you just pretty much do everything that your teacher would do, but you're not alone. You have somebody with you, kind of like when we were talking today about the pre-servants, how they learn and then they have a year of observations. It's kind of the same thing. You observe for about 15 or 16 weeks, but the teacher is observing you, and they give you just different advice on how to become better, classroom management, things like that. Once that's done, you have to take a big test, kind of like the state test, where you get your certificate. It's called the Praxis, and that's based on your subject area. You have to become a general ed teacher, you have to take the Praxis in math and in reading. And I believe they're changing some of the criterias now, that some teachers have to start taking more the different subject area like science and social studies. Once all the requirements are met by the New Jersey certification, you apply for a teacher certificate. To become a teacher, you have to have, and I'm assuming this is as with any professional career, you have to have a proof of clearance with no criminal background, because you're working with kids. You have to have an official transcript. You have to have a proof of teacher program, passing all of your exams. And then once you actually get a position, you are mentored for 2 years. So I had to mentor a student teacher. He had his own class, but I was mentoring him. So he would come in the morning, tell me, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, and I would give him ideas as to how to do things differently, or sometimes I would say, oh, this is a great idea, I'm going to use that too. So after 3 years of having your own classroom, the state of New Jersey, you become tenured, meaning you have your position and you're set in that position, and pretty much Like they really can't get rid of you unless you're an awful teacher. Okay, what do we need? As a teacher, also being a teacher, you need 20 hours a year of continuing education, where most of the districts will offer these hours to help you reach that goal. Now, what does it take to be the character traits to be a teacher? Got it? Hold on. You have to be able to have, or you have to have patience, 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 thoughts of patience. Not like sick people, but patience as in being calm and just really being able to handle what I call, be able to wear many hats. As a teacher, and I think this is regardless of the age that you teach, you're a teacher, you're an advisor, you're a mother, you're a father, you're a counselor, you're a nurse. You're so much more to these students than just a teacher. And kids can really tell if you're genuine or not. So you really need to want to be in the classroom and really want to love and be with these kids. And they can tell whether you really love it, love them, or not. You have to be extremely organized and creative. As a teacher, you're always coming up with new ways to reach your students who are all different. They learn in many different ways. And you need to have management skills to teach, to reach many students, at the same time be firm and be able to lead the size of a classroom. Sometimes it ranges from 20 to 25 to 26 students, while doing it all with, again, patience and love and just understanding what each student is going through, because they come to you with many issues. Some kids come with, problems at home, or some kids come not having eaten in the morning, or some kids come not having, I love what I do. So when I go every morning, I'm just enjoying being around with these kids. And every year when I see them from year to year, because again, I teach 3rd grade, when I see some kids in 4th grade and they're so excited when they see me in the hallway or they come up and hug me, and it's just, it really is very rewarding experience. And I love what I do. So there's always a need, I feel, for teachers, especially for men. There aren't very many men teachers. And if anybody wants to be a teacher as a young man, there's definitely many openings. They grab the men before they do the ladies, because there's a shortage in men teachers. So you wanted to say something? I know we're holding on to questions till the end. Yes, go for it. I get that in school all the time, actually. I in the middle of teaching, and I'm so excited about what I'm teaching, and one of the kids is going like this, and I'm excited. Yes. Can I go to the bathroom? Yes. So that's what I get. So anyway, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you so much. Who's next?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I don't have any slides either, so we will be talking right off the cuff. So I'll be talking about pharmacy. I'm a pharmacist by trade, and so I'm going to be talking about 3 different points. So the first point, we'll talk about the schooling of a pharmacist. The second point is the different avenues in pharmacy, because a lot of the times if I say pharmacy, the first thing that comes to your mind is CVS. It's not the case. And then the third point is the qualities of a pharmacist. So the first point, the schooling of a pharmacist. So there's 2 different things that could happen. First, you could, after high school, after you go to SATs, ACTs, all of the GPAs and whatnot, you can go through a 6-year program in pharmacy, which is a straight-through program. And there's another option where you can do your undergrad, 4 years or 3 years, however much time you need to finish, and then you can apply for pharmacy school, take your PCATs, similar to the MCAT, and then be admitted to pharmacy school. Sorry?
How many years after? 4 more years?
Yes, 4 more years. So that's one of the traits of a pharmacist, that you have to like to learn, as well as be very patient with everything. So within pharmacy school now, You have 3 years of your didactic portion, so that's coursework. That's you're studying the molecular biology, biochemistry, things that you'll probably have already taken in your undergrad class if you choose to take that path. And then you're also taking therapeutics. So our focus as a pharmacist is not to diagnose. That is the job of the physician. Our focus is to understand the medicine, understand the workings of the medicine. And some individuals are more interested in medicine from a structural perspective. So if I turn this alpha group, what's going to happen to the drug? Or more specifically, other people are interested in making sure they're catering the specific medicine to a certain individual based on their labs, based on their genetic history and things of that nature. And then your last part in pharmacy school, that last year, so 3 years of coursework, their last year is rotational experience. And that's a good segue to our second point because, again, in pharmacy, it's not just CVS or retail. That is one avenue of pharmacy, but that the different things that you could do in pharmacy are a lot more. So you could do retail pharmacy, so you have your community pharmacists like Walgreens or CVS and whoever it is. You can also do clinical pharmacy, and this is kind of not really advertised as much, but clinical pharmacy is based in the hospital or it could be outpatient, and that's more optimizing therapy for specific patients. You're really understanding the medicine and going back and forth with the doctor who's in charge, the attending, to making sure that this drug is specifically good for this patient based on whether it be their labs, based on their genetic profile, based on many different characteristics. And then the third avenue that you could take is industry. So such as the pharmaceutical companies in which I am currently. And within the pharmaceutical industry, you can marry medicine and business. And kind of like Uncle Ray and Uncle Ashraf, that's kind of what I did. I married both my PharmD with my MBA. So I'm very interested in science. I've always loved science, but I've always had a particular affinity of the commercial side of things. How does the business make money? And not so much on sales, but interpreting data and seeing, is this data concrete? Does this really make a difference in our patients? Does this does it only not make a difference for our patients? Does it make money for the business so we can produce more drugs? So that's another avenue of pharmacy. So the characteristics of a pharmacist is that you need to love to learn. You have to be up to date in data. You have to understand different therapeutic areas across the board. So you'll have someone who's in retail, they'll get drugs for a sinus infection, or they can get drugs for any type of other disease. They have to be proficient in understanding what this drug is for, because God forbid they give the drug, an incorrect drug to someone. As for a clinical pharmacist, you have to be very observant and meticulous, and that goes across the board, and I think that's a characteristic trait that is spread through any career that you take. You have to be observant, you have to be meticulous in everything that you do. Again, this whole faithfulness in the small, being faithful in the great. This leads to service. So even in education. And not only that, but in different aspects of pharmacy, you'll have different personality traits. So you have individuals that are not very social. They don't really want to interact with patients. So you'll see those individuals maybe in labs. Or you have other individuals like myself. Are you in a lab? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Are you a pharmacist? No, but those are just pharmacies, people. But you'll have individuals that are in for the pharmaceutical industry or that are more social. They'll like to give presentations. They'll like to talk to different clinicians or physicians to see if they can market their products, things of that nature. That's pharmacy in a nutshell. There's many different aspects of it, and the schooling is can range from 6 years to 8 years, and there's post-doctoral training as well that I didn't mention before. There's individuals that go into clinical pharmacy. They are required to do post-doctoral training, whether it be in internal medicine, doing 1 year internal medicine, followed up by a 2nd year of another specialization. Or if you go into the pharmaceutical industry, you have to do a postdoctoral fellowship in which you can specialize in cancer or specialize in infectious disease and things of that nature. I think that concludes pharmacy, and I'd be happy to take any questions afterwards. Sure.
Hey everyone. Hello. So I was asked to talk about engineering, and I'll give you a little bit. There's so many different types of engineering, but I'll tell you, the little bit that I know. One thing that helped me when I was trying to decide what to do, and picked engineering because I'm an engineer, is that my desire to create. I think you'll find that in majority of engineers, they like to be creative and they like to make something. So if that's something in you, think about engineering. It's it's almost like an artist, actually. I mean, we're not artistic, I can't draw, but engineers are very good at, creating and being creative in their work. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the schooling of engineers and the different types of engineering fields. There's so many, but I'll just go over like the majority or the big ones. And if you have any other questions about one that I didn't mention, just feel free to come ask me later, and I'll try to get some information or see who has that information for you. So for engineering, it's basically an undergraduate degree is what you need to get started. So 4 years of school in college, and with that, the majority of jobs and available in the field you can get with that. But of course, when you have a master's degree, or if you do any types of internships, meaning while you're in school, you go work during the summer at some engineering company, that helps you with your job. So one of the big engineering fields is chemical engineering, and there's a focus there on chemistry, of course. There's also biology, physics, math. It kind of takes a little bit from pharmacy and engineering mixed together. And what they do, think of things like working with food, with drugs, with even things just like pesticides, cleaners. There's so many different things that chemistry is used for engineering. And this is one of the high in demand fields, chemical engineers. Even think oil, refineries, energy. Even batteries uses chemistry. So there's different technologies that are growing because of the energy needs of the world that chemistry is very big on. Then there's one of the most flexible engineering firms or fields. It's called mechanical engineering. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this. And pretty much a mechanical engineer works to make a device, something mechanical, to be used for a specific need. So cars, right? Engines, even rockets or airplanes. Even in my field, I did, I'll talk about it later, I did biomedical engineering, but mechanical engineers are a lot in my type of companies that do implants and things that go in the body that doctors would use when, to help think like an artificial knee or a heart implant, valves, or a lot of different things. So that's mechanical. With mechanical and chemical, and also the next ones that I'll talk about soon, there's this thing called a professional engineering degree. I didn't need it because in my field it's not as sought after, but this degree helps when you're going to work in a very streamlined engineering field. So think like civil. I'm sorry? I'm thinking think civil engineering, electrical engineering. This degree pretty much says to the person that you're going to work for that I am a professional engineer. I have the basics needed for engineering, and even above the basics, I know all the different standard ways of that we've done engineering in the past years, and I can use this to apply to your company. So it's a way of showing that you're trustworthy and you know what you're doing above just a degree, a 4-year or college degree. So another engineering is civil engineering, and this is heavy on math and physics and understanding flow, actually. And the reason for that is think like the infrastructure. Like when you drove to church today, the roads that you took, how you got here, they make it so that the traffic is reduced. And sometimes to reduce traffic, if you actually, it's counterintuitive, they would close roads to make traffic less, which is, right, doesn't make sense, but that's the job of a civil engineer. So even things like tunnels, bridges, the sewer system, the water system, how energy is connected to all the buildings, like all the different electric poles, and all these things are civil engineering. A lot of the work in civil engineering can be in the office, kind of like mechanical and chemical engineering, but there's more chance of civil engineering going out into the field where the construction is happening to make sure things are going the way it was planned or designed. Next is electrical engineering. And electrical engineering is one of those ones that are also growing recently because things that are going more electric. So things like the engines of cars now, right? A lot of cars are being electrified to reduce the energy that we're using. But also things like communication systems, like the internet, right? They need electrical engineers, computers, telephones, power to the buildings, right? Electrical engineering can be used in computer systems and just how a building is set up for electricity. So it can be very diverse. And you know, actually, one of the cool things, I didn't think this is how we connect to another country, but there's a long cable that under the ground runs from one country to the other. Electrical engineers help design this, right? To be able to connect the U.S. to like Africa, for example, with communications and internet. Another big one is aerospace engineering, and you know, as you think of that, that's, you know, aircrafts like airplanes, satellites that are in space. I don't know if you know, but there's so many satellites in space. It's not just, you know, the International Space Station or just another few. There's hundreds of them. And if you actually, sometimes they make a map to show you how many, and it's almost as if there's stars in the sky of how many satellites are there. So there's a lot of aerospace engineering in that, and even just the shuttles, the rockets, of course, a lot of aerospace. Then there is computer engineering, and computer engineering is different than computer science. This is more like you want to make sure that the computers work with the software that they design. So someone designs a software, you know, there's engineers for that. Computer engineering would be making sure the computer works right to the software, for example. And then the last one, this is the one I did. So there's so many, but the one I did is not as famous. It's called biomedical engineering. And the cool thing about this is that you're mixing medicine and engineering together. So when I was trying to decide, I wanted something in medicine, but I always had the mentality of an engineer. I like to create, to design, and this marries the two. And there's a lot of science and math in this, as well as like biology and physics. But the cool thing about biomedical, I think, is that it doesn't go very deep in either one. So you get a little bit of each. It's like a more rounded versus a specialty type of engineering. So think, you know, MRI machines, even the cast that you wear, even the things when you go to the doctor and they press on your tongue to see the back of your throat. That's, you know, biomedical engineers. Something very basic or something very complex, knee implants, artificial eyes. It can be so varied. For me, a lot of the work is in the office and in labs, because you're working to design things, right? You make something and you test it out and you see if it's working, and something is wrong, you try to fix it. So that's the big thing about engineering, is that there's a lot of creation. You create something. And it depends on the field, but it can be very work alone, you know, in your field. Of course, you have to, in any company, you work with a lot of people, so you have to communicate. That's one of knowing how to communicate properly is the biggest thing for industry, and even other, you know, specialty being like a doctor, you really need to know how to communicate. So don't think you're going to go work alone and never talk to anyone. No, you need that skill. But engineering is a little bit, sometimes less of that. But then, so you have that, and then you also have working with people. And any engineering field that's very highly regulated. So medical devices, I can't just make something and sell it. The government, the FDA, has to say, yep, this is good. You did it the right way. It's safe to use. So things like this, and even industries like aerospace, like airplanes and rockets, they're very highly controlled, so accidents don't happen, or very few accidents happen. So these have a lot of documentation. So even though engineers, we like to just create and design, there's a lot of paperwork, especially in these types of fields. So make sure you know that you're good at writing down what you did, writing down and documenting things. So that's a lot of part of engineering as well. So it's not all just creating and designing. And then there's, in engineering, if there's people that work, their sole job is to make sure that engineers do it right. So even if I graduate as an engineer, my sole job can be just to check other people's work. So there's different types. So make sure that you know when you graduate, it's not going to necessarily be right away you get to design and create things, but sometimes you start out having to just look at other people's work to make sure it's done correctly, and then you're giving the responsibility of actually creating your own. For jobs, for me, biomedical engineering is less common, so it was hard for me to find a job when I graduated. Not that it's impossible, but think of that. For example, for me, I had to move far away to get my first job, to get experience, and with that experience, I can start to be picky. No, I want to work here, I want to work here. Then you can start to get where you want. But other jobs that are more common, think like mechanical engineering, it might be easier to find a job because there's so many of them. So depending on the type of engineering you pick too, it might be hard or easy to start with your first job. And that's just with a 4-year degree. So in general, no, but to have your professional engineering degree, you need to actually start working for 4 years under someone that has that professional engineering degree, and then you take a test. I forget the name of the test, but there is some type of test for that, and then you get your professional engineering certificate. And that's more needed for things like mechanical engineers that want to work in an industry that's well known, or civil engineering, things like that. Yeah, sure, we can talk later afterwards. Okay.
I know it's getting later, so it's 1:30 minutes. I have one more speaker, and then we can have questions and answers.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. I guess I'm sure almost all of you know I'm a cop. I work over in Philly, and I've been doing it now for about 5 years, close to it. And I mean, there's more to do than just what you see on TV. It's like two completely different complete different things. Like you see like people chasing people, cars and stuff like that. Part of that is true, but at the same time, it's really just waiting around for a call or doing paperwork most of the time. So it's very, very boring at times. But when you get into this stuff, it is actually pretty fun. And you deal with all kinds of people. People that hate you, people that love you, or, in between. And I would say for me personally, the reason why I chose to be a cop is because I wanted to be a detective back in high school. And the way to do that is to go through being a cop first. And I mean, another reason why I would say I want to be a cop is because I just have a desire to help people. So, sometimes people will accept your help, sometimes people won't, but you learn how to deal with it in certain different ways. You just have to, learn how to be a people person, first and foremost. Because if you're not a people person, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be able to, go out there and help people. You're not going to be able to go out there and do your job if you don't know how to communicate with people. But, you know, the idea of being a police officer falls under the umbrella of law enforcement, and there's many different things you can do. You can be like an agent for like the FBI or, you know, drug enforcement. You can be like sheriff. You know, there's totally different avenues you can take in being in law enforcement. I just chose to be a cop because, like I said, I want to help people, and, you know, part of me just wants to be a detective. Because I was one of those people that watched the first 48. I don't know if you guys know that show or not. It's basically just following detectives for like 2 days, trying to, you know, solve murders and stuff. And so that's what really intrigued me to wanting to become, you know, a detective at one point in time. So I don't think Philly was the right place to go though, but I mean, well, I don't know, it's where God led me, so I guess that's where I am for now. But like I said, there's like even in like the department itself, there's many different avenues you can go through. Like you can go to SWAT, you can go to like K9. There's all these different like divisions you can be part of. But, you know, like I said, in order to be really successful in this field is communication. You have to know how to be a people person. You have to know how to help people through their, you know, troubles and traumas and whatnot. Because obviously being a cop is not just catching bad guys. It's not just chasing people, chasing cars and stuff. Like, you have to just be there for someone to vent to you, because that's something people want sometimes. They just want to vent to you. You have to be like, you have to somewhat be like a therapist. You have to somewhat be like a medic. Like, it's different depending on the situation. And in the blink of an eye, one thing can escalate from, you know, 0 to 100, and you'll never see it coming. So that's like, you know, I would say it's like the fear of the unknown is there. So, you know, obviously, if, you know, you choose to go down this path, just be prepared for the unknown, and you'll never expect it. Anyone have any questions? I don't know how this works exactly. I'm not too much of a crowd person, so. You just need a degree for most places. And I'll tell you, in Philadelphia, you just have to be 20 years old and have a high school diploma to be accepted to the academy. And even then, it's like a whole 6 month to a year process. But, you know, all you really need is just a degree in anything. That's all you look for. Yeah. Oh, no, that's it.
So I know we went a little over today, but I think we've already started to lead. Thank you. So hopefully you got some level, again, we didn't do all the different professions, but hopefully you got a sample of each of them. There's probably a couple of themes just to kind of bring it home. One is there's a lot of options out there in the world, right? The problem is almost like choosing one. I think two, the thing to realize is that a lot of these professions are so integrated. This is not like it was 20, 30 years ago. A lot of these professions are so integrated. In a hospital, you have doctors, you have pharmacists, you have engineers, you have accountants, you have security, right? Like, you can cover it. Maybe the only one is education. I mean, even that, you actually have a lot of hospitals actually have training, which actually is education. So in a hospital setting, in a health system setting, you can have all these professions, right? I work in a healthcare technology company. We are mostly engineers, software folks. We have accountants and finance folks. We have doctors. We have nurses. Right? We have security. We have training. Any company, all these professions could be in any of those companies, right? So it's not like I'm an accountant. Which company does accounting? Every company does accounting. Every company has security. Every company has training, right? There's an integration between engineering and pharmacy, engineering and medicine, right? There's so many options out there, right? So the other thing to think about is that if you start a career, and let's say you work for a hospital, and say, you know what, I don't want to work for a hospital, I want to work for a pharmaceutical company, because I'm an accountant on finance, you can make that transition, no problem, right? I was a doctor, I spent 10 years doing residency, I work in a technology company. We hire a whole lot of doctors because that area of expertise that they have, we need because we're going into that. Med device companies, Johnson & Johnson, right? They hire a lot of pharmacists, nurses, dentists, right? So you can go down different paths too, right? And that's normal. And people do that for different reasons, right? So I think that's the thing to think about. And the third thing to think about is that how we all started, right? Ask God to give you his wisdom, to guide you in the direction that he wants you to go, right? Because George said he felt that was his calling. Every one of the people who presented, they felt that was their calling. Make sense? So again, hopefully this is, again, helpful. Again, you at least got to know who in the church are there. Again, if you have education, you have Tante Mariam. You know, David Ishak also is in education, right? There's a lot of people in every of these professions, right? But this kind of gives you, hopefully, is a good overview. Make sense? So I know for some people need to leave, so I'll give you your space. But if you have questions for any of the speakers that are still here, or next week you want to come, think about it and come back next week and have a conversation with them, you can also do that. Okay? Any last comments, thoughts? I know it's almost 1:30, so I want to get you home or take you to the next steps. Yeah. Sorry, what did you say? Yeah, so I'm a computer scientist. Just for the sake of time, computer science is very similar to engineering in a lot of ways. It's one of those fields that covers a lot of things, right? So you can be a computer scientist, like where I do is computer scientist for healthcare. You can be a computer scientist for engineering companies. You can be a computer scientist building software. You can be a computer scientist working for, I don't really like Facebook, so I'll say Google or Microsoft, right? So you can be a computer scientist doing purely software. You can apply that software for different fields. I have friends of mine who are computer scientists who work in Johnson & Johnson. They use their skills for that. So the thing to realize is, and maybe this is other thing to take away is that every profession you are learning a set of skills, a way of thinking, an approach to it that can be leveraged in different jobs, different countries, different types of companies, right? So as a computer scientist, I'm taught in a certain way, an analytical way, a problem-solving way, that I can go in, have a conversation with a doctor. I may not be as smart as Uncle Ray in ophthalmology. I mean, I know nothing about ophthalmology, but I'll understand at least what his problems are, right? At least to help the problem or address the problem. So it's an analytical way to solving the problem, right? I'm not gonna become an expert in medicine like he is. So you can leverage it in different fields. That's the whole point. Is like I said, the world now is very different than it was when I went to college, where you choose a field, you stick to it. Things now are just so flowing, which is great. But it can also be overwhelming, which is the problem. But again, whatever you choose, whatever career you choose, think about which category. Remember how I said, what category? Are you a science, mathy person? Right? Are you an Englishy person? Do you like to talk to people, or you're antisocial? Right? Some people I really love to spend all my time talking to people and presenting and get to know them. Some people I just want to be in a room, I don't want to do my job, leave me alone. Right? And in each of the professions we talked about, engineering, medicine, there are people who are very social in medicine, there are people who are antisocial in medicine. There are people who are very social in engineering, people who are antisocial in engineering. So even in the professions, you can choose a subset of it that is more to your personality interest. Does that make sense? So think about those things. Okay. So we're all here just to help. Again, this is meant as an exposure, not necessarily a decision-making process, but to help you again, different phases of your educational journey. I'll just put it that way. And the journey changes sometimes. After college, you change your mind. After 15 years of working, you say, I changed my mind, or I am going to go this different way. That's okay. That's all normal. The U.S. is in that ways is great. You can change and adapt and adjust. Again, I don't want to hold you up. It's 1:30. So we'll be here if you have any other further questions. Hopefully this is good use of your time. Thank you.